What is up, my friends? Good morning, and welcome to Own Your Dyslexia, our live webinar that we have for turning dyslexia into your greatest advantage. I am very excited to be here and to be your host today. I am Coach Willie Blake, and I want to tell you a little bit about why this came about. Because dyslexia is out there. Statistics show that between 5 to 10, sometimes even 20%, depending on what study you look at, that about 10% of people will hit the average there are dyslexic or have some form of dyslexia. Because, it affects different things. Because if you go into the in-depths of it, you got dyslexia, you got dyscalculia, you got dysgraphia, so many things. But when you knock it down to the roots, you got dys, which is difficult, and then lexia, which is reading. So it's a difficult with reading, difficult with the processing of information. And I have found that kids and teenagers, they get these resources, they get everything to be able to help out with that in the various degrees. But once you are out of school and and into college and into real life work, you're kind of stuck. And you have to either go out yourself or just deal with it day to day. And I realized that we shouldn't be doing that. There should be more resources out there for individuals who are adults that have dyslexics. And so I created this webinar specifically to bring professionals, bring individuals who have dyslexia that are out in the workspace, as well as people who work with dyslexics, to come on a panel to be able to answer your questions, to be able to talk about life as a dyslexic and what we can do, the tips and tricks to be able to make it go forward. So I am so excited to be able to get down to that today. Everyone who is here, whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, wherever you're watching, go ahead and put in the comments, put in the chat where you're from, say hi, let's get it engaged. And for the biggest thing, ask some questions. We are here to learn. We are here to get information. We are here to take something away. And after this, I don't want you to continue from your Saturday being like, oh, that was cool and motivational. What do I do now? I'm not into motivation. I'm into transformation. And so I want you to be able to take stuff away as we bring our panelists on. And before I bring them on, a few housekeeping items. First thing, again, drop your name, drop a hi and where you're from in the chat. I know we have a bunch of people in the US. We have individuals from the UK who are joining us, as well as even on Australia who are joining us. And so drop your name in there, ask those questions, and then continue to be able to, oh goodness, here's my dyslexia. Get engaged in the comments, find other people, connect with them, because that's truly why we're here. So very excited to get in, like I said before, and we are going to bring on the panelists. First and foremost, I'm going to bring the person who actually helped me create this, the Own the Dyslexia webinar. She is a powerhouse, being diagnosed with dyslexia in the adult years of your life. She has been a media producer who has been, I think, Tigo, I'm just going to bring you on up. I think 22 years now that you've been in this.
Yeah, production. Yeah, absolutely.
Empowering women, empowering individuals, entrepreneur at heart, but trailblazer by choice. Just a fantastic individual. Tigo, welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And, I look forward to today because, you get into certain groups and then you get identified as that, But then until I met you, I had never met anyone who was out on stage talking about dyslexia. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to share this. There needs to be more people because there's a lot of us dyslexics that it's a comma behind our name. We're this, we're that, we're a mom, we're, down the road. And oh yeah, by the way, I'm dyslexic. To bring it out in front so that not only others, our peers and other people that are part of our team and our families and people we look up to says, okay, I can bring it out front. But the next generation and the next generation, it doesn't even have to be a comma. It's just who you are and what you do. And it's part of your fabric of your life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm right on board with that. It's out there. It's the taboo topic that a lot of people face, but no one wants to talk about, because who here knows their friend's dyslexic? Unless it comes up in a conversation or somehow in passing it pops up. It's not a topic where you're just like, hey, you dyslexic? Because I am. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I got honored a couple of years ago by the You Belong Foundation out of Illinois, and they honor people special needs, you know. And she said she wanted to honor me. Wendy L. Cunningham Barnes reached out and said, "I want to honor you." And I went, "Okay." As a, I'm a disabled veteran as well. And I said, "As a disabled vet," she said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. But also because you're dyslexic in everything that you do and you're still dyslexic." And I went, wow, I belong. I never
Mm.
once thought of that, and to be standing there. We have our own needs and our own way of adjusting to things that is kind of, you have no idea what's going through this head every day to get through, every environment and every situation, like even doing a live event such as this. My brain is flying at 15,000 miles an hour. I don't know about yours, but this
Oh
is
yeah, for sure.
have to go through, and make sure we make it make sense, and that's pretty neat for me, is that I get to belong and say, come on, you can do this. You can do whatever the heck you want to do. Nothing should stop you, including dyslexia.
Mm, Microphone drop. I don't know if you guys knew this, but this is the end of the webinar. We'll see you on the next one. No.
Bye. See ya.
Oh, some comments are coming in. We got Mara and her husband Rusty coming in from Richmond. Hello to both of you. Good to see you here. We also got Dallin saying super pumped for this. Dude, I am super pumped. Dallin is one of my good friends who is just an amazing individual. So super glad to have you here. And we're going to bring our other panelist, Jason T. Rogers. Now, Jason is someone who I have known over this last year, and I met him, I think, at in a school group, the Alex Ramosi school games that he does. In a school group, we chatted with each other, and I'm so glad that he reached out to me about dyslexia, because from there it's created this friendship that I'm so glad to call him a friend and an expert when it comes to, personally, organization. Goodness gracious, and being an entrepreneur for over a decade. Welcome to our panel, Jason. Thank you so much for being here.
Good to be here, man.
Oh, should we just jump right into it? Can we just jump right into it?
Absolutely.
First thing I want to do is just briefly for a minute or two. I want each of us to share kind of our story with dyslexia. I want us to, when we were diagnosed, because I know Tigo and I have very different, not the spectrum, on different timelines of when we were diagnosed and found it out. When we're diagnosed, as well as kind of like what it's done for us in the meantime. And Tigo, I'd love to start out with you.
Of course, just throw me in the deep end. What is wrong with you, man?
Oh, Tigo, I know you are prepared. More than anyone, I know you are prepared.
I was diagnosed in my 20s. I was actually an administrator for the League of Women Voters, Citizens Information Service, back in Chicago, not realizing, I didn't even know what dyslexia was. I mean, there was no internet and all that. We're talking about the 80s, and I was told, my dad always told me, you're really good at math, you're really good at tech, that kind of stuff. So you can't read that well. So what? You can't be perfect at everything. So that's what I left it as. But for me, my dyslexia is a little different. I don't see things backwards or anything like that. When I'm tired, I don't see spaces. So reading a book is almost next to impossible for me, because if I'm tired, or even when I try to read a book, the letters don't have spaces between the words. And I thought that's how everybody saw it. I had no idea that you guys could see spaces. What? And I got I got diagnosed. Somebody told me at my job, I think you're dyslexic. And I'm like, what's that? It was the 80s. Nobody I knew was talking about dyslexia. And I said, okay. And I went to, got tested and did this and did that. And, thought my eyes were failing me. We went through the mountaintop for this thing and got told, yeah, you have a very rare form of dyslexia, in the sense that you do not see spaces when your eyes are tired. And I went, wait, you see spaces. Wow. So I went through all kinds of like treatments and trainings and things of that sort to kind of teach myself to stay focused, which has helped me over the years in business and everything, to stay focused. Because if I can stay focused, then I can read a book. And it took me 6 months. I'll never forget this. Took me 6 months. It was 1989 when I finished my first ever book. And it was I, Tina, the Tina Turner story. And my friends threw a party and we all dressed up like characters from Tina Turner, and it was the most funniest thing ever. But we had a party about it because it was the first book I had ever read from cover to cover, ever. And then a little thing called the internet and computers came out and all of that kind of stuff. And when I'm on a computer screen, I can turn the brightness up. You guys are too young to realize when floppy disks were around, the screen was black and you had green letters going all over the place. So that didn't help me at all. But once computers that we have now came out and I can turn the brightness up, I can read like crazy now. Because when I'm tired or not, I can force the light through the paper of the screen and be able to see the spaces that are there. But then send me a book. I love it when authors give me books. I literally have somebody in my family or my team read it, give me the highlights, and then I'll go get the audiobook once it's out and listen to it on 2 times speed, because there's no way I'm going to be able to read this book, just go sit in a corner or whatever. And I've always been jealous of the people on the trains and the buses or sitting on a plane, and they're just sitting there with their little light and they're, oh my goodness. How do you do that? I want to do that so bad. How do you do it? But that's my story.
Oh, it's I've heard of it before, but for some reason I didn't remember it until you brought it up, that you have other people summarize it for you.
Yeah.
That's so ingenious. Because why do we read books? Well, self-help books. We read self-help books to learn something, to get their lessons out of it.
Yeah.
So if we don't want to use the time to read it for hours, have someone else read it, or I guess you could put it through ChatGPT or something, and then just send you the highlights. That is ingenious.
Oh yeah, with AI, because now I'm a certified prompt engineer. You know, I'm a techie at heart. I program in 19 languages. So it's like with AI, I've written complete prompts that I don't even have to give it to a team member anymore. You know, like 30 seconds later, the book is highlighted. I've gotten my calls to action. All that stuff is done. And I'm like, okay, let's go. You know, ready to go. Technology is awesome, man.
Oh, technology is awesome.
So cool.
Jason, before I have you go, just for reminders for people who are watching, I said ask questions, and that might have been so broad you might not know what to ask. But the questions you want to ask things that you are curious about when it comes to dyslexia. Things that you have wondered throughout the ages of when you've been alive, of like when it applies to your personal life or your relationships. What questions do you have? Your work and your career, maybe finances. What questions pop up that are related to that? Or for those of you who are watching that have younger kids or siblings who are dyslexic, what are some questions you have there that might jog your memories as we go and answer some questions? Jason, I'd love to hear from you. Oh, Jigo, you got something?
I just want to say that if you think someone has dyslexia, you know, maybe they're wondering what the signs are. Like for me, nobody knew what the signs were, so nobody even mentioned it till I was in my 20s, like I mentioned. So if you think somebody might, or if you think you might want to ask what the signs are. Okay, now I'm done. Hi, Jason.
Hello. How's it going, everyone? My story. I was diagnosed as a kid with ADHD, but I also struggled. It wasn't until I was married that I was diagnosed with dyslexia. I would struggle with reading, and ultimately get my sisters to read to me because they loved to read, and a lot of things that they were interested in, I happened to be interested in too. So that's how I got through all the Harry Potter books. And in fact, it was through Harry Potter that I learned to enjoy reading, because I remember this one time where we were traveling across country, and all my sisters, I have 4 of them, got they couldn't speak anymore because they were talking too much. And we was at this crucial point in the book 4, and I had to figure out what was next. So I forced myself to read, and got through the book.
That's awesome.
And anyway, yeah. I'm not quite sure what else to share about my dyslexia. I know.
Yeah. Like how has it affected your career? Like as you've been an adult, because you were diagnosed when you were married, and like as you've been in your career and entrepreneurship for over a decade, how has it played into that?
It's mostly changed a lot of the way I manage things. So when I was in college, I I ended up not even worrying about getting the textbooks. I would just do a lot of Googling, to find the answers. Just because it's a lot easier to read something on screens, and also uh, I use Mac, and I know Windows has a feature too, but Mac has it's integrated where you can just highlight anything and have it read to you.
Hi, this is Jason's computer reading text to you.
So, and it's like really nice. So I'll look it up on my computer and just highlight and have it read to me, and anything and everything. That's how I'd get through a lot of content. That and Audible's podcast. That's how I go through things.
I'm with you. That Audible saved my life in reading.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
Like it was back when, I guess I'll go into my story quick. I was diagnosed differently. I was diagnosed when it was like first or second grade. They sent me to a classroom with all the other kids, had me go up to a table, and there was this, I assume it was a mom, gave me this paper to read. And it was like giving a Harry Potter novel to a first grader to try to read it. I was stumbling over words. I had no clue what was going on. And by the end of it, they just said, thank you, and let me go my way. To then, which a year after, found out I was dyslexic. And it was like from there, I'm glad we caught it early because my wonderful parents, they said that they're watching. Hey, parents, thanks for helping me out. Because as I grew up, they helped me in different ways for my siblings. When it came to reading, to where they gave me time. Sometimes they would just let me enjoy holding the book upside down and attempting to read. But it was just like from there going up, it was difficult to read in general because the words were getting blurry and sometimes I'd mix up two letters. But then Audible came up when a friend's like, hey, have you heard of Audible? I said, no. He said, yeah, all these books that you're reading. And this was when I was trying to go from 1 to 12 to reading 50 books in a year. They're in audio form and you can just listen to it. And that's when I turned my car into a library. That's when I started listening to more books. And I still read paper because there's scientific benefits from reading a paperback. But most of the books I listen to now. And I think that's with all dyslexics. We can listen better, or at least most dyslexics. I don't know about you two. I'd love to hear. Is listening better for you?
Absolutely, for me.
Yeah.
I have to listen to something multiple times before I can like really retain it. So I'll go through a book about 3 to 4 times before I move on to another one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's interesting.
For me, it's
go ahead, Tigo.
Oh, for me, it's I listen to it on 2 times speed. So when people speak at normal pace, I'm sitting there going, how do I turn them faster? Because I listen to the books on 2 times speed. But because of the way my mind works, I tell everybody, I kid about, I used to have a photographic memory and now it takes pictures from time to time. And it's like the book will play back when I'm laying down or when I'm sleeping or whatever. My mind plays it again. So I don't listen to it multiple times, like physically play it, but my head plays it anyway. And I'll be driving, from here to LA or something, and a book I listened to a month ago will play back in my head and I'll just listen to it again. So it's a little bit different.
Wow, that's awesome.
Interesting.
That's talented.
Jason, when you said you read a couple, like you read it over and over again until you get it and then move on, I'm sitting there being like, I'll read a page and I might zone out. It's a good chance I'll zone out. And then by the end of the page, I'll think in my head, well, I didn't learn anything on that page. And if it was important, it would have stood out and I would just keep reading the book forward. So it's so interesting.
My unique, my dyslexia is different in the fact that I can read words fairly decent. It's the fact that my brain doesn't pull out the information very well. It's
okay.
I forget what it's called exactly, but it's like I can't tell you what it just said. I could read it to you, but I can't I can't then turn around and say, oh, this is what it meant. And when I'm really tired, it gets bad.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure.
Seems like a common theme. Whenever we get tired, yeah, it happens. Dyslexia gets bad.
I just realized my screen, my background is backwards. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
No, just on your side. On our side, it's not.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
It's
you
mirrored.
look good on
you're
our
fine.
side.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're
cool.
fine. It's just mirrored. That's a StreamYard thing. Yeah, don't worry. You're not backwards. We would have told you. I would have told you for sure. I would have told you. But I do have a question though. I actually have two questions. One question is, do you find when you read things, especially like posts and stuff, because we're getting hit with stuff all day long on social media, do you find you skip words or you fill in words that because of how you thought this post was going to go?
Oh, yeah.
And then you go back and read it and go, wait a minute, that didn't say that. Do you ever go through that?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it was
That's why I mostly just get my computer to read to me, because it just saves me that struggle of reading it and my brain filling in the words that it doesn't want to read and then going, oh wait, no, that didn't make sense. I have to read that again. And so I read it again like 3 times, Yeah.
I go through that too. Okay. I just wanted to know if others would. And do you ever see those posts where they're not letters, they're like numbers and da-da-da-da, but your brain knows what the words are anyway, and they say, you're a genius if you can read this. And I can literally read that better than I can read regular words.
Same.
There's also those posts to where it'll have those sentences and it'll have a full sentence, and at the bottom it says, reread this because you read it wrong, and there's like words going. I'm like, that it sounded great.
It sounded great. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't alone on this boat. Okay.
No, you have 2 supporters with you right here. Oh, we have a question from Mara coming in. What are some tips to remember what you read? Tips to remember on what you read. Jason, I know that you read a lot. I'm actually going to throw it to you first. What thoughts do you have on that?
More than anything, I take notes. So when it comes to driving in the car, it becomes a little challenge. Like you're listening to something that's inspirational. It's like, oh yeah, that was great. I will pause it and then say, hey Siri, text Gateway Gears. And then I'd say the quote that I want to remember. And Gateway Gears is my business phone number. And I'll text my business phone number because no one texts my business. They always call. So most of the texts that come in are through me. So
there you go. I know some tips that work for me to remember when I read, even though sometimes I zone out when it happens, is I'll read something or listen to something, and then at the end of the chapter, I have to write one thing down that I learned. Because especially when I read a lot of books and go through a lot of books, I don't want the information just to stay in my head or for me to forget it. Like, I read that book for a reason, so there's no reason for me not to actually learn and start implementing something. And so I made the challenge. I think I heard it from Vin Gong, a communication expert over in Australia, that after every chapter, write 1 or 2 things down that you learned from it that you can start implementing. That way you can be able to remember it, because it's not just words floating in your head and then float out like flying butterflies, but it's on paper. And then once it's on paper, at least for me, it's a lot easier to remember.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, well, like I said, it plays back in my head sometimes, but for me, I started before you guys were probably on the planet with tapes, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, those kind of Rita Davenport back in the day. So listening to the tapes in the car, and Zig Ziglar said, you're going to have to listen to this 16 times before it's going to make sense to you. And I went, oh my God, 16 times. And then in the tape, he says, yep, I said 16 times, which blows my mind, And it's like, you really do have to listen to it again and again. But now with technology, I literally text myself, because you can with your iPhones. you can text yourself. So I text myself notes in every chapter. But with AI and all that, like I said, I'm pulling notes and stuff as I go along because it's listening first and then giving me highlights and calls to actions and all that. But I make sure I do things at the end of the chapters as well. And if I forget, if I know that, because everything has to be scheduled in my life right now, if I know that I'm listening to this book at this time, I have a reminder set in my phone to write notes before I forget it. I literally have Siri saying, hey, hey, Tigo, write this note down before you forget it. And it'll happen 3 hours after I was supposedly read that book or listened to that book. So I lean a lot on tech right now. I lean a lot on tech, period.
Yeah, especially in your line of work. Tech is
I'm
pretty
a
much
programmer.
everything.
This is what I do.
Yeah.
My brain works in a way where I have to categorize things, and so that's one of the ways that helps me to remember. It's also a matter of just commitment to it, of like, it's like, how important is this thing that I want to remember? How do I apply it in my life? And it's like, if I can share it quickly with someone else, it's like, oh, I learned this thing today, and I can share it with my wife or a friend of mine that I'm hanging out with. It's like, oh, I learned, it helps me to remember it, as well as like if it's crucial enough, I will find a way to make note and and set up in my systems a way that I can apply it right away.
Mm. Is that something that came naturally to you, like an insight just like that, or was it, how did it come?
I started reading a book called Getting Things Done by David Allen way back when I was 21. I had started reading it because I realized I was so scatterbrained with everything I was trying to do with my life. I wanted to do so many different things, so many big dreams, and I realized that I start a lot but never finish, and I had to learn how to finish things. So I picked up the book Getting Things Done by David Allen, and I've read that book now countless times. I read it at least once every year now. I used to read it about 3 times a year. It's a quick read. In Audible, it's only 3 hours, so it can be done in like a couple of days. And I would listen to that over and over again so I could memorize almost the principles that he teaches in there of how to organize things, not only like assets but concepts and action steps and things like that.
Oh, that's so interesting. I know that I'm with you, Tigo. I listen to audiobooks at 2x speed. And I used to go up to like 2.6 and 2.7, but then once I got up there, I realized that it was past my learning threshold of I could listen to it and get things here and there, but it was too fast for me to actually be able to, while the book is still going, think of the concepts, process it into my own life.
Right.
And so I had to drop it back down to 2. And that was kind of like that sweet spot. Do you kind of feel that same way?
Yeah, I tried it up there too. And if it's something I'm really just trying to get through so that I can honestly look at this person and say, yep, I listened to your book, then yeah, I'll speed through it, but I even edit, we do a lot of filming and so forth. And I edit at 2 times speed, because I just do. It's comfortable for me. So, but I get that. I do want to ask, or I guess make a statement, because I'm experiencing this now. I'm 61 years old, so I'm getting into that senior mind. And, you see the post on social media where the person went into the kitchen. Why the heck am I here? Came down the stairs. Why did I go downstairs? Pick up a pen. I do it all the time. I'm like, what was I about to write? And dealing with that and dyslexia is a trip, because you are already, have your mind on mind melt sometime because so much stuff is coming at you. So I will listen to something or whatever, and I'm quick to write it down. And I call it Tigo ease, because I don't write like everybody else. People say, let me read your notes. Good luck. because I'll write down the side of a page. I write in my own version of shorthand. It's like,
Same.
forget it. Same, right? It's like, forget it. Good luck. People say, oh, they're going to steal your idea. Here's a book. Figure it out. Good luck to you, but now as you get older, you guys haven't experienced it yet, but as you get older, you got the senior mind thing going on and dyslexia at the same time. And it's like, literally, I have had my phone in my hand looking for my phone. I'm watching posts. I'm going, yeah. Where the heck's my phone? I got to call Willie, what's going, oh my gosh, it's in my hand. So I just want to tell other seniors out there that are also dyslexic, you're not crazy. You're just battling these two things together. And some days dyslexia wins and sometimes senior mind wins. And you just got to write down more stuff and give yourself more prompts. So I will literally go back through this and through AI or whatever, get all those prompts and start making new notes. Because a month from now, Willie will call me and say, hey, what'd you think? What about this? What about that? And I'm going to have to go back and look at the notes because I'm not even going to remember what we talked about because of all the things that's happened in that month. And I've got senior brain going on.
Yeah. What the heck's future, Willie? Why are you taking a month to follow up? What the heck?
I have a follow-up question. I'd love to see your shorthand, your own version of shorthand. What was your process of developing that?
It literally came from, one, being dyslexic, and two, not wanting to take the time to, because I don't know how you guys are with spelling, but spelling was never my thing.
Yes.
When I was a kid, I was never, I could get straight A's, or back then you got E's in everything in elementary. And then I would be barely over the top of the D when it came to spelling. I'd forget E's and I's, and you spell like you hear. So phone starts with an F, it's like, it's the words that, salmon, the L is silent, blah, blah, blah. So when I write my stuff down, I write it like I hear it. One. And then in a sentence where there would be a the or a this or a we're, I might just write a W. I might just write a T, or I don't write that word at all. So when you're reading it, you go, wait, it's spelled backwards, or it's not backwards, but spelled wrong, incorrectly. Then on top of that, there's words missing. It's written in a circle because I'm creative. So I'm quick to write something in a wave, in a circle. I'll literally write like a comment for one thing and, orders or something that I know I got to get done. And then, wait, I got to go to the grocery store. I'll make a grocery list right in the middle of what I'm thinking of and put it in a box and then write around it. So good luck trying to figure that out. It's like, wait, we're going to take over the world by doing this with AI, and we need orange juice, bananas, and then we're going to Washington, D.C. on the 20th of June. And then we, oh, wait, don't forget, you got to get your bag fixed. And good luck trying to read it. It's perfectly sensible to me. I've even had people say, can you write it in different colors so we know it means different things? I don't have time for that. My brain knows it's right. I'm writing everything in blue because my brain likes blue. That's it. So it's a little different. That's how I do it.
I love it. That's great.
Okay.
I developed my own shorthand mostly just because I hated people correcting my spelling. So I was like, I'm going to make this so abstract that people don't even know what this is. And so that's ultimately what I did. That, and also I wanted to condense it down. So a sentence that would take up a full line now takes up a quarter.
Exactly.
How fast I can, or how short I can make it. So yeah.
Exactly. And for me, I'm worried now because as you get older, you forget certain things and remember things that really don't matter. It's like, who cares what I wore the first day of kindergarten? But you remember stuff from back in the day. And I'm worried that one day I'll look back at my notes and go, what the heck was I talking about in, 2001? Because I won't remember what that was, or how I did that. So it's interesting. Now I'm trying to convert some certain things to audio and sitting on camera and literally just leaving notes for myself in case I get to 100 years old and I can't remember the journey. I've told myself the journey.
With going with writing, I don't know if you two ever done this, but I do picture notes.
I like
What
that.
I do is, if someone's giving a speech or something, my notebook is literally pictures of whatever they're talking about. There might be words to help like connect dots, but it'll be like if they're talking about, I don't know why they'd be talking about a scroll, but like a scroll of like the top or success points of the top 3 things to do. I'll draw a scroll, right? Top 3 success, write the 3 bullet points, and like it's the visual of these 3 things are needing to do. And if it starts getting slower, then I'll start drawing the person to help my memory just connect the dots. Do either of you do it that way, or am I just like solo over here?
I used to, as a kid, just to keep me entertained. I used to doodle. I do a lot of symbols. Like that's one
Symbols
of
I do.
my shorthands where I have a lot of symbols that represent certain things. That way, it really condenses everything down.
Yeah, for me, you're a talented dude. I can draw stick people of all sizes, Snoopy, Charlie Brown, and Garfield. That's it. That's all I can draw. So, but I do symbols as well. Yeah, symbols help me a lot.
Okay.
Do you guys? I have a question for you.
Okay.
For you both. Have you found different foods help you or hurt you?
It's a good question. I don't
That's
think I've
an
ever
awesome
thought about that
question.
before.
There's some foods out there for me that heavily interfere with my ability to remember and my emotions. Like the Lay's potato chips that have like any type of flavoring on them will cause me anxiety. Or if I have too much milk, it will cause fogginess in the brain where I can't finish a sentence half the time. Or I just can't process things fast enough very quickly. I'm just like fogged. Things like that. Have you found that?
The only thing I could think of is grease and cheese. Whenever I have things that I'm thinking of like Little Caesar's pizza. That's what came up. Whenever I have things that are greasy and that are either greasy or are greasy mixed with cheese, my energy drops quick. And when that happens, I notice that my processing power slows down like quite a bit to where it'll take me longer to do things. I don't just, with dyslexia, I also have, I'm going to butcher it, audio processing disorder. So when other audio things are going around me, I get it's easier to be distracted by them. Kids running, my wife needing something from me, music or something like that going on. Yeah, just grease and cheese. I never thought about that before, but yeah, those 2 things. I need to stop eating Little Caesars. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay, so the producer in me wants to put the disclaimer out there. The views and opinions are not necessarily those because you actually named a product, but that's just the producer in me. For me, I never thought about it being food, that there's certain foods that can do that. But I can tell you, I cannot eat dark chocolate. It literally makes me just angry for some reason. Everything irritates me. And when I've eaten dark chocolate, I can't read whatsoever. I've tried. Somebody's given me just a business card or something. I can't even see it. So there's something about dark chocolate to the point where a good friend of mine, one of my mentors who passed last year, used to make this amazing, just want to slap yourself, dark chocolate cake. And my family called her and said, if you don't stop making that cake and giving it to her, she's going to stay at your house for the day until she gets over whatever this is. Because it would just be, do you want dinner? Why? Is it dinner time? It would make me so angry. But other than that, I have no idea. Now I'm going to be paying attention. Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to know
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I'm gonna start. Maybe I'll do like a food journal or something.
I want to know.
Yeah, same. My wife, she was having some issues with her eye. We went to the doctor, and it was some inflammation. Long story short, she went on it's a diet. It's called an elimination diet, where you basically go down to the very basics. And she took me on the road with her on this. For it's like, you're coming on the diet with me, and we, at the beginning, for the first 30 days, we were only eating fruits, vegetables, and meats. Like no nuts, no, like nothing else. And even within those three elements, it had to be, there's some things that we still couldn't eat, like eggs. And for the first 30 days, super hard. And then after that, you introduce one thing every 3 days, and to see how the body reacts to it. And it opened up my eyes even more. Like, I was aware of a number of things, but then it helped me realize even more of things, that my body reacts to things in different ways. I encourage it. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but I encourage it.
I know they did something like that with my youngest grandson, because they couldn't figure out what he was allergic to. And they were like, we're just going to have to take it back. He's 5. He's going to be 6 in a couple of months. Thinks he's 25. But they took him back to the basics, and then one thing after another to figure out what he was allergic to. So yeah, I have to try that. Thanks for that tip. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try it. If it's that hard, I may not do it, but I'm going to try it.
Try it. Mara has something along those food things of, how does caffeine affect your dyslexia? I have to turn it to both of you, because I personally don't drink any caffeine. Stopped when I was 20 because I was very much in love with Dr. Pepper and drank way too much when I was 19. So I just kind of cold cut it. So I'll turn it to you. How does caffeine affect your dyslexia?
Oh, it helps me focus, but I think that's more ADHD than dyslexia. I don't do caffeine either, except on rare occasions where it's like, I really need to focus on this thing throughout the night. So I'll drink some caffeine and focus.
For me, I don't do a lot of caffeine anymore, but I do have my coffee in the morning. It's just in my 40s, for some reason, I didn't drink coffee at all. And then a friend was selling coffee through a network marketing thing, and I said, okay, I'll do it. And now I'm really mad at her, because I have to drink coffee every morning for the last 15 years or so. But for me, it's like, if I drink too much, it's like I can't focus. And I don't know if that's my dyslexia or what's going on, but I just seem to be busy, and I'd start and stop and start and stop. And I've learned to just, 1, drink less coffee in the morning. 2, if I have a moment like that, because it would really frustrate me, especially since we're always on deadlines, I go walk or something so I can get that caffeine down and get back to being focused. But a little bit of caffeine helps me focus. Too much caffeine, I'm all over the place.
That's good to know. Interesting. Yeah.
Cool. That's interesting. A wonderful good friend of mine asked another question, Jason T. Rogers. Let's jump into it. How has dyslexia ever affected your self-esteem or confidence? Fantastic question. I'd love to start this one out, because a story pops into my head with when I grew up and knew I was dyslexic. I was just a kid and didn't think about it. But now, like hindsight 2020, I realized that my friends were staying a little bit away from me, thought dyslexia was contagious. For you viewers out there, dyslexia is not contagious. But I found that as I went to I think it was in 2nd and 3rd grade, every Friday for the last hour, I would go to a separate room to where me and a couple other kids, we would read and write. It was a special hour for, I believe, dyslexics, where we had fun and played games and learned how to read better. But I remember my friends kind of pushing it away. And so it affected my confidence a lot when it came to that. And my self-esteem, as I continued to grow older, was shot especially when I would be walking down the hallway in high school after lunch and my friends would walk into the English honors classes and I just have to stand there and then walk down a couple more doors to the English class and be like, I'm stuck here with with kids who don't want to learn, don't want to do anything at school. And I felt like I was out of place. And so it affected a lot of things. But from that hindsight also, I've also realized that it was how society looked at it and how I interpreted it. Because now I see it as a superpower. I see it as one of the greatest advantages in the world because we are so much more creative, so much more empathetic. We big picture thinking, easier at problem solving and thinking of different solutions because we had to our entire life. Like there's so many things that go into it now. And so with that confidence and with that self-esteem, it depends on where you look. And I just throw that as the last thing of like, figure out where you look. I think it was Henry Ford that said, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right.
Yeah, you're right.
You believe that you can't, it ain't going to happen. If you believe that you can, it's limitless.
Yeah.
What about you two with dyslexia and self-esteem and confidence?
For me, I love that quote. I've said that quote a lot. There are some things out there that I struggle with so much that even if I believed, it still didn't happen, you know? Like I've growing up, I loved learning, but I was homeschooled for the beginning part, and then I was introduced to school, and I struggled through most of it. But then I really struggled in 8th grade to the point where I kind of lost my joy for learning. I just didn't care anymore. I didn't care about what they wanted me to learn. I didn't care about anything, you know. I wasn't. I felt like a goth kid on the inside, you know. Where it's like, oh, and like all dark inside, and ultimately I had to find that joy in learning in my own way and develop my own systems to help me remember and implement what I wanted to learn ultimately. I no longer cared what other people wanted me to learn. And that was in my teenager years. I was like, I don't care anymore about what you think I need to learn. So,
you know, for me, it tore my self-esteem apart, but I didn't know what it was when I was a kid because I didn't know I was dyslexic. And I have a pretty unique story. We all do, but my parents were older when they adopted me in their 40s. And they were literally sharecroppers when they were kids in Mississippi and Arkansas. So brilliant people, but didn't have a lot of education. So my dad was quick to put a pin in it, as he would say. So if I was good at something, I was good at it. If I wasn't, don't worry about it, just keep going. So I remember, you know, back in the day when we had records and, you know, people would say, hey, put another record on. And I would like fall to the back because if I can't read it right now, you know, I don't want you laughing at me because I put on the wrong record. Because I did that once when I was like 7, you know, I put the wrong record on and they were like, that's not what it is, blah, blah, blah. And just after that, I didn't want to touch stuff like that. So if I had to read out loud or if somebody asked me what something said or whatever, I'd find a reason. So that's why I have this comedic timing, I think, because I learned how to make people laugh and make it funny because I didn't know why I couldn't read it and you could. You know, and when I would ask my parents, they were like, you can't have everything, kid. Just keep moving, you know, be happy with what you got. Thank God for what you got. So I didn't know what that was until I was in my 20s. And by then I had these habits that, you know, were super hard to break. I mean, I spent the next 20 years trying to break them, you know, and if I had looked back at that person to be sitting here with you today, there's no way in heck I would do that. Because I'd be out there. And what if you asked me to do something and I couldn't do it or I couldn't understand it or it didn't click the way it should with other people? You know, I'm not taking any chances. So I held myself back for pretty close to half of my life, with most of it not even knowing why I was doing it. I thought I was stupid. Literally, I was told I was stupid by my own parents. You're just stupid when it comes to stuff like that, and you go, okay, I'm stupid when it comes to stuff like that, because there was nobody in my world to say, no, it's part of your genius, and I have a genius IQ, which is crazy. You have a genius IQ and you're dyslexic. You want to think about the voices that are going on in here all day long?
Mhm.
And it's like, it took me until I was into my 30s before I realized that was part of the gift. You learn new paths and new ways because you couldn't walk the other people's ways, and you didn't understand why. And it wasn't that I couldn't walk them. I just didn't know how to walk that path. Now I do.
Yeah.
For
I
those
love what you said there about, oh man, my brain just froze.
I know that feeling.
Go Dyslexia.
Dyslexia. Go Dyslexia. You were saying something on the lines of them saying that you would stop doing something because you were afraid of being teased and things like that. And yes, same. I would not read in class. I would avoid it at all possible, and just because I didn't want to. I didn't want to be the fool, And as I've gotten older, and I've recognized that when it comes to learning anything new, I do have to accept the fact that I'm going to look like a fool, and I need to be okay with that. Like, other people can think that way about me, but I know my process, and I know that by the end of this, I'm going to be running circles around them. It might take me a couple more years to figure it out, but they're going to stop learning as soon as they figure it out. And then they're going to forget. For me,
Yep.
I'm going to not only figure it out, but I'm going to take it so much further than they did that they won't even be able to comprehend what I'm capable of. And that's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. I love that.
Along with that, I want to ask a question that I actually had a conversation with a college student the other day. And they asked me this question. I think this fits perfect. It was, how do I stop feeling less than with my dyslexia? And it fits really well in this because the college student, he would in classes know the answer. He'd be sitting in his finance class, know the answer. 5, 10, 15 seconds would go by and he wouldn't raise his hands for this very thing, because while he was growing up, every time he gave a wrong answer or stood up and stumbled over his words, people laughed or he was criticized. And so the time would go by, and then finally another student would raise their hand, give the exact same answer that they had in their head, and then beat themselves up for it, saying, why the heck did you not do that? You're so dumb. What in the world? You knew the answer and you didn't raise your hand, which is kind of like an oxymoron thing, because you're smart because you knew the answer, but you feel dumb because you didn't say it. When he asked that question, I'll share what I shared with him. I said, you are not dyslexic. You have dyslexia. And I'll explain that in a second. But it's the same as, you are not fat. You have fat. You are not lazy. You do lazy things, which then makes you lazy. Individuals aren't entrepreneurs. They do entrepreneurial things, which then brings it to that. People aren't kind. They do kind things, and then that label comes with it. And so I told this individual that they aren't this thing, this title, this label that has been given to them. That thing is not the thing that defines them. They get to define the thing that defines them. That's just something that came with the works of when we were born. But that doesn't mean that we are these negative things, the things in society of which people focus on. Sadly, the bad side of it. We are what we get to define it with. if we believe that we can, we get to see these things. I remember I used to think that way, but then I started thinking like, why do they get to tell me how to think? Why do they get to tell me what dyslexia is? And then I learned about all the advantages of it with creativity and empathy and everything that goes with it. And I'm like, I'd rather focus there. I'd rather be in that field on the advantage side, the way of which I can multiply the God-given gift that's been given me, rather than thinking about the things that it hurts, which the list of the great things that it brings is way longer, in my opinion, than the few things of which it creates the weakness that we have. And so I told him that, I'm like, you get to define who you want to be. And from today, I'd suggest looking at the good things and see what it's actually doing and multiplying that, rather than just thinking that you are less than, because you're not. You're awesome.
I love that. It brought to my mind that you don't have to let other people define who you are. You get to decide. And it comes down to, deciding on your own of what your limitations mean to you, and are they even limitations to begin with? Because in all honesty, they're strengths. Every strength is a weakness, and a weakness is a strength, just depending on how you define it. I am one of my greatest friends. His name is Jason Hall. He had passed away, but I was his medical aide. He was paraplegic, and he couldn't move anything from the chest down. Like, he could move his arms, but he didn't have any, like, he couldn't move his fingers. So, and he became dyslexia when he was I'm not dyslexia was paralyzed when he was in his teenager years, and he turned that into a strength in the fact that because he could not do anything like anything physical, he focused on speaking. And it was all thanks to his parents, ultimately. Like, his parents were inspired and helped him focus on what he was capable of. And so he focused on just his strengths. And he became a worldwide national speaker. And he wrote books, and he would delegate things. Like, that's one of the things for me as a medical aide. I would help him get ready in the morning and keep things organized for him. I would mow his lawn. I would do all these other things, which meant that he didn't have to do those things. He could focus on just his genius. Versus me, where I am capable of so many things that I find myself doing pointless stuff all the time. And it has taken me years to find out what my zone of genius is and to stay focused on it. Versus for him, it was a narrow amount of things that he was really good at, and he became really good at those things, and he turned that into a strength, where he delegated everything else. Like now, because of him, I recognize that, where it's like, I need to delegate all these things that, yes, I'm capable of doing them, but they keep me from my zone of genius. And if I can delegate them off and focus on the things that I really love and I'm really good at, then I can make more of my life. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Man, that is impactful. There's another question that came up that was asked to me that I wanted to share. And it kind of switches the areas from when we talk about the mindset and the personal side to the career side. Because each of us are entrepreneurs in our own rights. We have our own businesses, and we work with other people to help solve problems and bring value. And so this individual asked that they forget a lot of things, but when it comes to deadlines, and when it comes to tasks needing to be done, what are some tips and tricks to help dyslexics to be able to do that better? Do either of you have any suggestions for that?
I do. One of the things is making sure that you visualize it. That's the only way that I manage to really get things done, is if I actually meditate in the morning and visualize myself doing the thing before I do it. that helps me more than anything else. It helps me get past my ADHD. It helps me get past my dyslexia of like, if I can visualize myself doing it, then it's so much more easier for me to just get out of bed and do it. In fact, it's so much easy that to the point where I'm not even thinking about it anymore. If that makes sense. Like, I did all the thinking at the beginning of the day, and then it's all done.
Yeah, for me, it's the same, and it just gets on repeat in my head to the point where it'll annoy me if I don't get it done, because it's like I'm bugging myself. You don't forget you got to do this dyslexia, live, and it's like, okay, I get it. Just let me think and get through it. But I also think that we have to be true to our own to-do list. A lot of times we plan way more than we could possibly ever get done in a day. Somebody taught me years ago that you plan more that you want to get done in a year than you could possibly ever do. And you plan not nearly enough on how much you could get done in 10 years, and it's like we put so much pressure on ourselves, and no matter how much money you have, how smart you are, dyslexic or not, 24 hours. That's what you got in a day. 24 hours. And if you plan 21 hours of activity, that's why you're beating yourself up, because you put too much on your plate and there's no way you're going to finish it. And as an entrepreneur, we're always double booking and over planning. And I've got it. I got it. Save the world and pick up the kids. Yep. Okay. No worries. We've got it down, and it's other things that I wrote down a little notes over here. And, it's like people worry about being perfect, whether you're dyslexic or not. They're trying to be perfect. And there's just no such thing as perfect. You can be the greatest athlete in history. I loved Michael Jordan when he was playing and everything that he did. And, he's flying through the air and blah, 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 blah. But statistically, he missed more shots than he hit. There's no such thing as perfect. And I think if you're dyslexic, you put more pressure on yourself, because when you finally do go boom and come out there, if it's not perfect, you hurt yourself more than most people even noticed, And it's like when I teach people how to be on camera or how to stand in front of a stage or even network, my kryptonite is a cocktail party. I can do this all day long. I can stand on stages in front of hundreds and thousands of people, not a problem. Put me in a cocktail party with 40 of the most powerful people in town where you have to do small talk, and I dang near break out into a rash, because they're paying attention now. There's a spotlight here. And what if I say it wrong? What if I do it wrong? What if I miss a point? And, oh, I knew that. I should have said, missed that opportunity. That's putting pressure on yourself. They're not pressuring you. You are. That's your quiet power. And to be able to turn that around and say, you know what? If I make a point of, saying 3 things in this cocktail party, I feel like a winner. If I make a point of, meeting somebody new, I'm a winner. One of my mentors, years and years and years ago, she took my car keys and said, you're going to meet 10 new people in this cocktail party. That's it. I'm not giving you your keys until you do. Well, genius IQ, dyslexic, quiet power, no problem. What I did was I took 10 business cards out of my little stack. I walked up to people and I went, hi, what's your name? And he'd say it. And I said, what do you do? You got a card? Great. He give me a card. I give him a card. I go to the next person. 5 minutes later, I've met 10 people. I've got 10 business cards. Give me my keys. I'm going home. It's like people really, whether you're dyslexic or not, you put way too much pressure on yourself, especially with social media. I'm not tall enough. I'm not short enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not whatever. And it's like, there's no such thing as perfect. Just be you. Mm-hmm. And if the people can't be connected to you, then that's not your tribe. That's not your audience, but stop trying to fit in, because I got news for you. The people you're trying to fit in with are just trying to fit in too. You know, that's my 2 cents on the whole subject. And watch now, I'm going to get invited to like 15 cocktail parties.
Your calendar's going to start blowing up with cocktail
For
parties.
cocktail parties, yeah.
Two things when you were sharing that came to my mind. It's so interesting that we really do put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and especially, just dyslexia aside, just entrepreneurs, people who are wanting to grow, be the top in their business, people who just want to be better. We hold ourselves to a different standard. Is that bad? No, but that standard should not be perfection.
Right.
My Brendan Bouchard has a wonderful, he has this like a high performance planner that he does, and I love it because on each of the days you get 3 things that you get to do. 3 top priority things. Once those 3 things are done, you can do other things if you want, but those are bonus. You got those 3 things and that's it. And I love it because it's so simple. Let us not try to tackle 20 items in a day. Let's narrow that down to 2 or 3 things that absolutely need to get done, that will move the needle, that will accelerate your success most. And then let everything else be a bonus. You know how amazing a day would be if literally you have to do 2 or 3 things and then everything else is a bonus? That's fantastic. That'd be a great day, right?
Yeah. Also remember to give yourself a high five. I mean, you know, when you, I'm in film and television. So Tyler Perry was asked, what's this Perry phenomenon? You've never had a closing or losing weekend, premiere weekend. Well, his math is easy. He never spends more than $25 million on a film, period. And he's never had less than a $30 million weekend opening, which means he never loses. But if you build a $100 million film and you have $97 million come in that opening weekend, guess what that does to your record? You just lost. That's how Hollywood works, right? And we don't take time as a people to congratulate ourselves for getting the stuff done. We worry about the stuff we didn't get done. Yeah. You know, it's like, I did this, I saved a child, but I never got this stuff done. And my socks are not organized. Seriously? Socks? No. Give yourself a high five on the things that you did get accomplished, because a lot of times the things that we get done, especially entrepreneurs, that we get done, others who working 9-to-5s and dream of starting their own business are too scared to even start it. And we're doing it every day. So yeah, remember to give yourself a high five, especially in the mirror. The person in the mirror will high five you back. It's amazing how that works every time.
Every single time it happens.
Every single time, you know, every single time.
Yeah, it's better to have things done than perfect.
Absolutely.
And I have to remind myself on a regular basis of that, where it was a quote from Steve Jobs is it's better to ship than to have perfection. Just ship it and then fix it later. You know, it's like, and he's right. He's absolutely right in the fact that going through the whole process from beginning to end is more important than actually having it perfect. It's like writing books that way, publishing courses, like making productions and things like that. It's always better to just have something than to have nothing, you know?
Yeah. You know, that makes me think, you know, how many people, I know a ton, I'm pretty sure you guys know a ton too, that never do their launches. They never start their shows. They never get on stages. They never write their books because they're not perfect. But everything that they're using, computers, phones, cars, have recalls all the time.
All the time.
And nobody says, that's it. I'm never touching an Apple again. That's I will never, ever touch an iPhone because they sent me an update to get bugs out. You know, we don't think anything like that. And these are $1 trillion companies, basically. They're knocking on $1 trillion door. And, but we won't, no, it's not perfect. I won't do it. Maybe the trick to success is just doing it and just keep doing it.
Just keep doing it.
It is so interesting that one of my favorite lessons that I have ever learned in my life came from a Harry Potter Hogwarts mystery phone app. That's a game. and
Nice.
it has
Okay.
there's a quiz. There's like you to get friendship with some of the characters. You take quizzes with them, and one thing with Bill Weasley that is in there is
He's my favorite.
something like, how do you get stuff done, or what is a lesson I've taught you? And the answer that you click on to get it most right, and it was one of the most powerful lessons I've learned, was hard work beats lazy talent.
Ooh.
And
You
I
should
can
make that a t-shirt.
you should make that a t-shirt.
You should make that a t-shirt. Wow.
Bill Weasley.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Because
That's
it's
awesome.
about what you get out. It's about what you create. That's what dyslexics are known for. We're so good at creating. I think the statistic out there is that 30% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic in some form or another. That is amazing, because as entrepreneurs, you got to be crazy.
Yeah.
Not crazy, creative.
Creative.
We do got to be crazy for sure.
Yeah.
But you got to be creative too.
It's one of the rarest. It's like the only place where we can thrive is as entrepreneurs, as business owners, because that's where all of our strengths really lie. Is our strengths lie in leadership because of the empathy. Our strengths lie in creative thinking and problem solving, which we had to do throughout all of our growing up because nothing came easy for us. And then as well as the fact that we can't do those other jobs, those 9-to-5 jobs that everything has to be right. When we're texting and writing, we have to stay professional all the time. You don't have to be professional as an owner. You just have to own the business. That's it. You just have to own it and have a team, and the team can be professional and make you look good. As long as you are a team leader and you're loving and empathetic, they're going to love you, flaws and all.
Yeah, that's pretty
Well
cool.
said. Well said. As we wrap this up, I promised a gift for everyone who registered for it. I dropped my website link in the chat. I want each of you who wants a free ebook. This is free for everyone who's watching. It's the Dyslexic Achiever's Blueprint. This is something I created that has worked over the last almost decade for me as a dyslexic, on how I went from going from 1 book to 50 books in a year, from being shy on stages to being an award-winning speaker, from struggling with writing a paragraph to being multiple best-selling author. These are the steps that have helped me to get there, and I want to share it with each of you today, because each of you are amazing individuals. And as Tigo and Jason and I have talked about, dyslexia, it's an amazing thing. It's something that can help you out. Of course, there's a lot of challenges, and of course, there's so many traumatic experiences, bad experiences, however you want to define it, in our lives. But we get the chance to be able to define how we define it. And so on that link, you can go ahead and it'll send you to my website to where you can grab that free ebook just for each and every one of you on the call today. Listeners, thank you for joining us, and big special thanks to Tigo and Jason for joining us. I do have one last question. And if anyone knows me, I love last questions, especially when I interview people on my podcast. If you had a chance to go back in time to when you were a kid or a teenager, and you could only tell them in 2 or 3 sentences something for them to remember the rest of their life, what would it be?
Your hard experiences is your story. That it's like every great story out there that we love and we enjoy reading is because that main character is going through hell. And like, it's not, if they were going through perfection and greatness, like everything worked out perfectly for them, it would be a really boring story and it wouldn't be enjoyable to read and to experience. Same thing with life. It's like all the things that we have to deal with, that we're struggling with, that tear us up. It's a part of our story, and it's something to actually be grateful for.
For me, it'd be don't quit. Don't quit, and realize that the powers that you have, it's okay to be different. You being different's going to take you to entirely new levels that you haven't seen yet. It's going to be amazing. You're literally going to go from this kid that people literally thought you were stupid to doctor. Just keep going and understand that you don't have to be a part of the pack. Your own pack will follow you when that time comes.
Yeah.
But you have to just keep going. Don't quit. Because that's one of the problems that I've had most of my life is, I'm quick to want to throw the towel in the ring and say, I'm out, and I have to talk to myself and say, no, 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 no. No, no, no. If you can't get into the ring by walking up the 3 stairs, then roll under the rope and still get in the ring. You have to just find your own way, and that's okay. And then one day, people like Coach Willie's going to call you up and say, hey, come talk on my live. And, you're going to get to honor people all over the world. And there's a thing called AI that's going to come out, and the things that you felt you were slowing down in will have you firing on all cylinders again. So in order to see what's around the corner or what's coming in front of you, you have to keep going to see it. Period. Just don't quit.
And mine would be, the master is the master because the master has failed more than the novice has tried. As you go forward in life, your light should never be dimmed because of what other people think, but your light should radiate so bright through your love and inspiration, through the gratitude that you have for this beautiful world we live in, through the hope and the time that you spend with those that you love. Share that light. It is so bright and people need it. And when you share that light, and when you simply take the imperfect action to create the world that you want to live in, it is amazing how beautiful this universe can be. I want to thank again our panelists for being here. Tigo, thank you for being here. Jason, thank you for joining us as well. And thank you for all of you who are watching live, as well as the recording that will be sent out to you guys in the next coming days if you haven't had the chance to watch this. We are very grateful to have you here. And as I always love to wrap up my podcasts and episodes, I am grateful for you. And remember, my friends, continue to light up the world, continue to be the best version of yourself, and always remember, dyslexia is an amazing ability. So turn dyslexia into your greatest advantage. Thank each and every one of you, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.